In this lesson, we are going to dive into the world of insider threats. Insider threats pose a unique and they are often overlooked. They refer to the cybersecurity threats that originate from within an organization. These insider threats can come from current or former employees, contractors, or business associates who have legitimate access to the organization's systems and data. Unlike external threats, insider threats have an intimate knowledge of the organization's infrastructure, which makes them potentially more damaging than an external attacker. For example, if a threat actor is trying to break into an office building, but they have never been inside the building before, it is going to be pretty difficult since they have no pre-existing knowledge of the building's security features or even the building's layout. On the other hand, if you have a disgruntled employee who wants to gain access to the building, it is pretty easy for them to do so. They already have an access badge or access code since they work in the building every day, and they know the layout of the building because they work there every day, and they know the security processes and procedures. Well, the same thing happens in the digital world, and our trusted insiders can easily become a problem for us if they switch sides and become an insider threat to our organizations and our networks. Insider threats have varying levels of capabilities, and these are largely determined by the individual's role and level of access within the targeted organization. For example, if an individual has extensive access privileges because they work as a system administrator for the company, they could potentially cause significant damage. On the other hand, if the individual only has limited access rights to the system, they may not be able to cause widespread damage to the organization's network. But another factor in determining the individual's capabilities is their own level of knowledge. For example, a skilled attacker who has a regular user account on the organization's system because they are working as an unpaid intern or a receptionist could cause as much or more damage than an unskilled entry-level system administrator on the same system, even though the system administrator has higher levels of access by default. When it comes to insider threats, you should be aware that insider threats can take various forms, including data theft, sabotage, or the misuse of access privileges. Insider threats can also help to facilitate an external attack, such as installing malware or creating backdoors in organizations' systems based on their motive and intent. Each insider threat is driven by different motivations. Some are driven by financial gain and they want to profit from the sale of sensitive organizational data to others. Some other threats may be motivated by revenge and are aiming to harm the organization due to some kind of perceived wrong levied against the insider. For example, a recently fired employee might attempt to take some of the company's sensitive information with them on their last day, and they could publicly leak it or send it to the organization's other competitors. In some cases, insider threats may be unintentional or are simply the result of carelessness or a lack of awareness of cybersecurity best practices by one of the organization's users. A common example of this type of insider threat would be an untrained employee clicking on a link in a phishing email and it accidentally allowed access to their workstation, and in turn, it could potentially compromise the company's network. One of the most infamous examples of an insider threat is the infamous case of Edward Snowden, a former contractor for the US National Security Agency, or the NSA. Now, some people believe he was a whistleblower and a privacy advocate, but from the perspective of his employer, the NSA, and the US government, he has been classified as an insider threat. Back in 2013, Edward Snowden leaked a vast amount of classified information to the media to reveal extensive global surveillance programs run by the National Security Agency that he disagreed with. His intimate knowledge of these systems and his access privileges allowed him to gather a ton of data without the NSA ever detecting it. And then Snowden was able to leak this information to bring light to different surveillance programs used by the NSA. This really does show how much damage a trusted insider like Snowden can do, since they already have legitimate access to the organization, its network, and its data. After the cleanup of the incident, the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, described the Snowden disclosures as the most massive and most damaging theft of intelligence information in the history of the United States. It is hard to provide a cost estimate for this incident since much of the impact revolved around national security, intelligence capabilities, and diplomatic relations, but some estimates put the cost into the billions of dollars, lost capabilities, and technological advantages against the enemies of the US. Another example of an insider threat is the Twitter attack of 2020. Back in the year, Twitter fell victim to an attacker who collaborated with two insider threats to achieve the goals of this attack. The young attacker managed to gain access to several high-profile Twitter accounts, including those of Elon Musk, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Bill Gates, among others. The attacker used this unauthorized access to launch a Bitcoin scam by attempting to mislead followers of these influential Twitter accounts. The attack was a stark reminder of the risks associated with insider threats and highlights the importance of robust internal cybersecurity controls, even in tech-savvy organizations like the formal social media giant Twitter. So remember, an insider threat refers to the potential risk posed by individuals within an organization who have access to sensitive information and systems, and who may misuse this access for malicious or unintended purposes. To mitigate the risk of an insider threat being successful, organizations should implement a zero-trust architecture, employ robust access controls, conduct regular audits, and provide effective employee security awareness programs.